They stole from me at my wife's funeral. I came home from Margaret's service to find my kitchen stripped bare. Every appliance gone. The KitchenAid mixer she'd bought just 3 months ago. The medical-grade refrigerator. The Cuisinart food processor we'd used to make her soft foods during chemo. On my counter sat a handwritten note from my son Tyler. "Dad, you're too old to use these anyway. We need them more. Don't be dramatic about it." I should have been angry. Should have called him screaming. Should have demanded everything back. Instead, I smiled, because Tyler had no idea about the life insurance check sitting in my desk drawer. $2.8 million, and he'd just failed the biggest character test of his life. Let me back up. Margaret died on September 11th, 2024, after an 8-month battle with pancreatic cancer. I spent every day of those 8 months caring for her, feeding her through a tube when she couldn't swallow, lifting her when she was too weak to stand, sleeping on the hospital chair beside her bed. The kitchen appliances Tyler stole weren't just appliances. They were the last things Margaret had chosen for our home. In July, when she knew she was dying, she'd insisted on upgrading everything. "One last act of making a home," she'd said. The Samsung refrigerator cost $2,400 because it had medical-grade temperature controls for her medications. The Bosch dishwasher ran antibacterial cycles to protect her compromised immune system. The Wolf microwave had precise heating settings for warming her liquid nutrition. Tyler knew all this. He'd watched me use every single item to care for his mother. What Tyler didn't know was that Northwestern Mutual had delivered Margaret's life insurance check the day before she died. $2,800,000. The policy she'd insisted on keeping even when money was tight. "For your security, Edward," she'd said. "Promise me you'll use it wisely." I'd planned to give Tyler everything, the whole inheritance. He was our only child, and despite his flaws, I believed he deserved it. But Margaret had always worried about his character. "Test him first," she'd said during one of our late-night conversations in the hospital. "Make sure he's the man we raised him to be." So I'd decided to wait. Let him show me who he really was when he thought I had nothing. The test began the moment Margaret took her last breath. Tyler and his wife Sarah showed up to the funeral in their BMW, designer clothes, Sarah's $2,000 handbag. They'd been struggling financially. I knew about the second mortgage, the credit card debt, the private school tuition for their 2 kids, but they maintained appearances. During the service, Tyler gave a beautiful eulogy about his devoted mother. Sarah dabbed her eyes with a silk handkerchief. They looked like the perfect grieving family. While I was shaking hands with mourners and thanking them for coming, Tyler and Sarah were backing their truck up to my house. My security cameras caught everything. The timestamp showed 2:47 p.m., exactly when I was standing beside Margaret's casket, accepting condolences. They moved fast, systematically, like they'd planned it. The KitchenAid stand mixer, $380. The Ninja blender system Margaret used for protein shakes, $200. The Cuisinart food processor that made her soft foods possible, $150. The Vitamix she'd used for liquid nutrition, $500. The Breville toaster oven that was easy for her weakened hands to operate, $250. The Instant Pot, $100. Even her coffee maker, $80. $15,000 worth of medical equipment designed to help a dying woman maintain some dignity in her final months. Gone while I buried her. The note Tyler left was written on the back of her funeral program. He couldn't even find separate paper. But here's what Tyler didn't understand about his old man. I might look like a broken-down widower living in a modest house on Elm Street. I might drive a 10-year-old Honda and wear the same 3 suits to church. But I'd spent 45 years building a life with a woman who taught me to plan for every possibility. I'd been testing Tyler's character his whole adult life. The time he borrowed $5,000 for his business and never paid it back. The Christmas he complained that our gifts weren't expensive enough. The way he talked about Margaret's medical bills like they were a personal inconvenience. Each time I'd told myself he was young. He'd grow up. He'd learn respect. Margaret's death was his final exam, and Tyler had just written his answer in permanent ink. I sat in my empty kitchen and opened the life insurance file. $2.8 million. Margaret's gift to ensure I'd be comfortable for the rest of my days. The inheritance that would have set Tyler's family up for generations. Tyler thought he was stealing from a weak old man who couldn't fight back. He was about to discover how wrong he was. Tyler called me at 8 p.m. that same night. I was sitting in my empty kitchen, still in my funeral suit. when the phone rang. "Dad, I hope you're not mad about the appliances." His voice was casual, like he'd borrowed my lawnmower. "I see you found them useful," I said. "Look, I know it might seem sudden, but you're living like a hermit anyway. Margaret's gone. It's time to start downsizing." Downsizing. 3 hours after we'd put his mother in the ground. "We've got 2 kids and a mortgage," Tyler continued. "You just heat up TV dinners now. Sarah and I can actually use this stuff." I heard Sarah in the background. "Tell him we're doing him a favor. That house is too big for one person anyway." "Did you hear that, Dad? Sarah thinks we're helping you transition into a simpler lifestyle." Transition, like my grief was a business reorganization. "We're thinking you should sell the house too," Tyler went on. "Move into one of those senior communities, with activities and meal plans. You'd probably be happier around people your own age." "I see. Thank you for clarifying your position." My voice was steady, calm. Tyler had no idea that my neighbor, Mrs. Peterson, was on her front porch and could hear every word through my open window. She'd moved closer, shocked by what she was witnessing. "Don't get all dramatic, Dad. You're 70 years old. Mom's not coming back. We're just being practical." Practical. That's what he called stealing from a grieving widower. "Besides," Tyler added, "you've never been good with money anyway. Remember when you couldn't afford to help us with the down payment on our house? At least this way the appliances go to someone who can make proper use of them." The down payment. He was referring to 2018, when they'd wanted to buy a house beyond their means. I'd had the money but refused to enable their financial irresponsibility. Instead, I'd helped them find a modest home they could actually afford. Tyler had never forgiven me for that lesson in fiscal responsibility. "You know what your problem is, Dad? You've always been jealous of our success. Mom understood that. She knew we deserved better." Sarah's voice grew louder in the background. "Tell him if he reports anything stolen, we'll contest Mom's will. We'll claim elder abuse." Elder abuse, for refusing to enable their theft. "Dad, you still there?" "I'm here, Tyler." "Good. Look, we'll come by tomorrow to get Mom's jewelry and any other valuables. No point letting them sit in an empty house. You understand, right?" I understood perfectly. Tyler wasn't just stealing appliances, he was looting his mother's memory. "Sarah's already called a few estate sale companies. They can help you liquidate everything else. We're thinking the antiques alone should bring in enough to cover your moving expenses." The antiques Margaret had collected over 4 decades. The china cabinet that had been her grandmother's. The rocking chair where she'd nursed Tyler as a baby. All of it reduced to moving expenses in Tyler's mind. "We're really doing this out of love, Dad. I know it's hard to see right now, but you'll thank us later." Love. He was calling theft love. Mrs. Peterson had moved to the edge of my property line. Her face was white with shock. She'd known Tyler since he was 5 years old. She'd watched Margaret teach him to ride a bike on our driveway. Now she was hearing him dismantle his parents' life like it was a business transaction. "The thing is, Dad, you've never really understood how the world works. Mom protected you from a lot of financial realities. Now it's time to face facts." Financial realities. From a man who'd mortgaged his house twice and maxed out 4 credit cards. "Sarah and I have been talking to a financial advisor. He says people your age usually need to live on about $30,000 a year. Social Security should cover that, right? So really, you don't need all this stuff anyway." $30,000 a year. Tyler had calculated exactly how little his father deserved to live on. Plus, think about it. When you die, everything would just come to us anyway. We're just accelerating the process, making it more efficient. More efficient. Tyler was talking about my death like a quarterly business review. "So, we're good, right, Dad? No drama, no police calls, no making this harder than it needs to be?" Mrs. Peterson was now standing directly under my window. She mouthed the words, "Call the police." But I had a better idea. "Tyler," I said quietly, "thank you for showing me exactly who you are." "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means I believe you. When someone shows you their character, it's wise to accept that information." "Dad, you're being weird. Just say we're good and we'll handle everything else." "We're good, Tyler. You've made everything perfectly clear." I hung up the phone and looked at Mrs. Peterson through the window. She was shaking her head in disbelief. What Tyler didn't know was that our conversation had given me perfect clarity about what came next. He'd just shown me exactly how much respect he had for his mother's memory, his father's grief, and the family that had raised him. Margaret had been right. Character tests reveal everything, and Tyler had just failed his with flying colors. The next morning, I called James Henderson at Henderson and Associates. Jim had been our family attorney for 23 years. He'd drafted our wills, handled Margaret's medical directives, and guided us through every major legal decision. "Edward, I'm so sorry for your loss," Jim said when I arrived at his office. "Margaret was a remarkable woman." "She was, and that's why I'm here." I placed the life insurance check on his desk. $2,800,000. Jim's eyes widened. "Edward, this is substantial." "It's Margaret's final gift. She wanted me to be secure." I told him about Tyler's call, about the stolen appliances, about the plan to liquidate our home and move me into senior housing. Jim listened without interruption, taking notes. "I want to revise my will, effective immediately." Jim leaned back in his chair. "Edward, you're grieving. Major financial decisions should be made carefully. This decision is perfectly clear. Tyler showed me his character when he thought I was helpless. I'm choosing to believe him." I explained Margaret's character test idea, how we'd planned to evaluate Tyler's response to thinking I had nothing, how spectacularly he'd failed. "What exactly are you proposing?" "I want the entire inheritance to go to Margaret's charity, the Pancreatic Cancer Research Foundation, the organization that tried so hard to save her." Jim was quiet for a long moment. "That's $2.8 million, Edward. Are you certain? Tyler can have $50,000 for the appliances, since he felt he needed them more than his grieving father. Edward, I have to ask, is this revenge?" "No, Jim, this is respect. Tyler told me exactly what he thinks I'm worth. I'm simply accepting his valuation." Jim pulled out a legal pad and began drafting notes. "You understand this decision is permanent? Once we execute this will, Tyler loses any claim to your estate. Tyler forfeited his claim when he robbed me at his mother's funeral. We spent 2 hours documenting everything. The security camera footage showing the theft during Margaret's service. The phone call where Tyler outlined his plans for my life. Mrs. Peterson's witness statement about overhearing Tyler's disrespectful conversation." "I've seen family conflicts before," Jim said. "But this level of disrespect during active grief, it's unprecedented." Jim explained the legal implications. Tyler would receive exactly what he'd demonstrated he deserved. Enough money to cover the value of what he'd stolen and nothing more. The rest would fund research to cure the disease that killed his mother. "There's something poetic about this," Jim noted. "Margaret's life insurance will help save other families from what you went through." "Margaret would love that irony. She always said Tyler needed to learn that actions have consequences." Jim prepared 2 documents, the revised will and a formal police report about the theft. "We'll need both for the legal record." Tyler mentioned contesting the will, claiming elder abuse. Jim smiled grimly. "Let him try. We have video evidence of him stealing during the funeral, audio of him insulting you, and witness testimony to his character. Plus, you're demonstrating perfect mental clarity by donating to charity. No judge would side with him." As we finalized the paperwork, Jim asked about my feelings. "Any second thoughts? Tyler is still your son." I thought about Margaret, about the 8 months I'd watched her fight for every day, about the kitchen appliances she'd chosen to make her final months easier, about Tyler loading them into his truck while I stood beside her casket. Tyler made his choice, Jim. He showed me exactly how much he values family bonds. I'm simply responding in kind. The new will was ironclad. Tyler Brown would inherit $50,000 in recognition of his expressed needs regarding household appliances. The remaining $2,750,000 would establish the Margaret Brown Memorial Fund for Pancreatic Cancer Research. Jim handed me copies of all documents. "This is the most clear-cut case of character failure I've ever documented. Tyler essentially wrote his own disinheritance." "When do we make this official?" "I'll schedule a family reading for 2 weeks from today. October 15th. We'll invite Tyler, Sarah, and Margaret's siblings. Public witness to the decision." "Perfect. Tyler likes an audience for his opinions. He'll get one." As I left Jim's office, I felt something I hadn't experienced since Margaret's diagnosis. Peace. Not the peace of grief, but the peace of moral clarity. Tyler had shown me his true character when he thought I couldn't fight back. Now he was about to discover that character tests work both ways, and sometimes the teacher learns more than the student ever expected. The insurance company required a police report for stolen property claims. Standard procedure, they explained. I filed report VA 2024-091315 on September 15th with Detective Mark Davis at the county sheriff's office. $15,000 in appliances. Detective Davis reviewed my itemized list. "That's felony theft, Mr. Brown." The serial numbers are all documented, I said, handing him Margaret's purchase receipts. Everything was bought within the last 6 months for medical purposes. Detective Davis studied the receipts. KitchenAid mixer, model KSM 175 PSER, serial number W202400734. Samsung refrigerator, model RF23, M8070SR, serial number 15, ZKQS 2C400186. Every appliance tracked and verified. Your son took these during the funeral? While I was accepting condolences beside his mother's casket. Detective Davis had seen family disputes before, but stealing during a funeral crossed a line. We'll need to serve him with the theft report, standard procedure. I understand. Tyler's phone rang at 10 a.m. the next day, just as I'd planned. Deputy Wilson was standing on his doorstep with legal papers. Tyler called me 20 minutes later, panicked. Dad, what the hell? You called the cops over some old kitchen appliances? They weren't old, Tyler. They were $15,000 worth of medical equipment. Silence. Tyler hadn't bothered to research the value of what he'd stolen. $15,000? That's impossible. It's just regular kitchen stuff. The Samsung refrigerator alone cost $2,400. Medical-grade temperature controls for your mother's medications. The receipt is dated July 15th. More silence. Tyler was calculating. The KitchenAid mixer was $380. Your mother's last purchase before she got too weak to bake. She bought it hoping she'd recover enough to make your birthday cake. I could hear Sarah in the background. Hang up. Don't say anything else. But Tyler was too panicked to think clearly. Dad, this is crazy. We can return everything. Just call off the cops. Return them? You said I was too old to use them. You said you needed them more. I didn't mean... Look, we made a mistake. People do stupid things when they're grieving. Grieving. Now Tyler was claiming grief as his excuse. You weren't grieving when you backed your truck up to my house, Tyler. You were shopping. Detective Davis had done his homework. He'd pulled Tyler's financial records as part of the investigation. Second mortgage, 4 maxed-out credit cards, $68,000 in debt. Mr. Brown, Detective Davis called me that afternoon, your son's in significant financial trouble. This looks like theft motivated by desperation. What happens next? Depends on whether you want to press charges. With video evidence and clear premeditation, we have a solid case. I thought about Margaret, about Tyler's plan to put me in senior housing, about his casual dismissal of 45 years of marriage. Let the legal process run its course, Detective. Tyler called again that evening, more desperate. Dad, please. Sarah's freaking out. If this goes to trial, it'll be in the newspapers. My job, the kids' school. Everyone will know. Everyone will know what, Tyler? That you stole from your father at your mother's funeral? It wasn't stealing. It was... family helping family. You said yourself you barely cook anymore. Family helping family. Tyler was rewriting history in real time. I have the security footage, Tyler. Time-stamped during the funeral service. You moved those appliances while I was burying your mother. Tyler tried a different approach. Look, Dad, I know you're hurt, but destroying my family over this won't bring Mom back. Destroying his family. Tyler was blaming me for the consequences of his own actions. Sarah's already talked to a lawyer, Tyler continued. He says this is elder abuse. You filing false reports against your own son, elder abuse, for documenting theft with video evidence. Your mother's cancer equipment isn't a family heirloom, Tyler. It's not your inheritance. It was medical equipment that kept her alive longer. You're being dramatic again. Dramatic. Tyler's favorite word for accountability. But here's what Tyler didn't understand. I wasn't just filing a police report. I was building a legal record of his character. Every phone call recorded, every threat documented, every attempt to manipulate or intimidate carefully preserved. Detective Davis called me on September 20th with an update. Mr. Brown, we've recovered the appliances from your son's residence. Serial numbers match your receipts perfectly. How did Tyler react? He claimed they were gifts, said you'd given them permission to take them, but the video evidence contradicts that story. I could imagine Tyler's shock when deputies showed up with a search warrant, his carefully constructed narrative falling apart under legal scrutiny. What's the next step, Detective? District attorneys reviewing the case. With the video evidence, documented financial motive, and witness testimony, they'll likely proceed with formal charges. Tyler's third call came that night. His voice was different, smaller. Dad, they took everything back. The DA's talking about pressing charges regardless of what you want. The law doesn't require my permission to prosecute theft, Tyler. This is insane. We're family. Yes, we are. And you showed me exactly what that means to you. Tyler's final attempt at manipulation. Mom wouldn't want this. She'd want us to work things out. Margaret. The woman whose medical equipment he'd stolen while her body was still warm. Your mother spent 8 months fighting for every day. Those appliances helped her maintain dignity during the worst experience of her life. You turned that into an opportunity for profit. Silence. Keep the appliances, Tyler. You said you needed them more than your grieving father. I believe you. What's that supposed to mean? It means you've shown me your priorities. Now, I'll show you mine. I hung up and looked at the revised will sitting on my kitchen table. $2,750,000, redirected from Tyler to Margaret's charity. Tyler had just learned his first lesson about consequences. The next lesson would be much more expensive. Tyler cornered me at Morrison's grocery store 3 days later. I was buying provisions for 1 instead of 2, still adjusting to widower portions, when he appeared at the end of the cereal aisle. Dad, we need to talk. Hello, Tyler. His face was flushed, angry. Sarah stood behind him, arms crossed, radiating resentment. You're making us look like criminals over kitchen stuff. Tyler's voice carried across the store. Other shoppers turned to stare. I'm not making you look like anything, Tyler. I'm simply documenting what happened. What happened was family business. Private family business. Sarah stepped forward. He's just a bitter old man trying to hurt us because he's lonely. Mrs. Carson from our church was shopping nearby. She moved closer, recognizing the voices. The whole congregation knew about Margaret's death and my situation. Dad, you're embarrassing the whole family, Tyler continued. People are talking. The kids' teachers are asking questions. What questions? About whether we're criminals, about whether we steal from old people. Old people. Tyler had just publicly confirmed his view of his father. Sarah's voice grew louder. Everyone knows you called the police on your own son. What kind of father does that? Mrs. Carson approached our group. Edward, is everything all right? Hello, Margaret, I said calmly. Tyler and Sarah were just explaining their position on family relationships. Tyler panicked. He didn't want witnesses to his words. Dad, let's take this outside. I'm comfortable here, Tyler. Please continue explaining why I shouldn't document theft. Sarah looked at Mrs. Carson. He's not thinking clearly since Margaret died. The grief has made him paranoid. Mrs. Carson had watched me care for Margaret during her illness. She'd seen my devotion firsthand. Edward seems perfectly clear to me, Mrs. Carson replied. Perhaps you should lower your voice in public. Tyler's face darkened. This is none of your business, lady. Tyler, I said quietly, Mrs. Carson was at your mother's funeral. She helped serve the meal afterward. Tyler had just been rude to a church elder who'd volunteered to feed mourners at his mother's funeral. Mrs. Carson's expression shifted. You're Margaret's son? The one who spoke so beautifully about her? Sarah grabbed Tyler's arm. We should go. But Tyler was too angry to stop. My father is trying to destroy our family over a misunderstanding. We were helping him downsize after Mom's death. Downsize? Mrs. Carson looked confused. Tyler felt I was too old to use my kitchen appliances, I explained. So he collected them while I was at Margaret's funeral. Mrs. Carson's face went white. During the funeral? Tyler realized his mistake. It wasn't... We didn't mean... You took your father's belongings while he was burying your mother? The produce manager, Tommy Rodriguez, had been watching from behind the banana display. He'd known Margaret for years. She'd shopped here every Thursday for decades. Is everything okay over here? Tommy asked. Everything's fine, Sarah snapped. Mind your own business. Tommy looked at me. Mr. Brown, you doing all right? I'm fine, Tommy. Just a family discussion about kitchen appliances. Tyler made one last attempt to control the narrative. Look, everyone's misunderstanding the situation. We were helping Dad transition after losing Mom. Sometimes family help looks different from the outside. Mrs. Carson studied Tyler carefully. You helped your father by taking his appliances during the funeral? The silence stretched uncomfortably. Other shoppers had gathered, drawn by the raised voices. The whole store was listening. We should go, Sarah repeated, tugging Tyler's sleeve. Tyler looked around at the faces watching him. Neighbors, church members, people who'd known his family for decades. This isn't over, Dad. No, Tyler, I don't think it is. They left their cart and walked out quickly. Mrs. Carson shook her head. Edward, I'm so sorry. Margaret would be heartbroken. Margaret knew Tyler's character better than anyone. She wouldn't be surprised. The store gradually returned to normal, but I noticed people looking at me with sympathy rather than pity. Tyler's public outburst had revealed his character to our entire community. Word travels fast in small towns. By evening, everyone would know exactly who Tyler Brown really was. Sarah launched her counterattack on Facebook that evening. I didn't use social media, but Mrs. Peterson called to read me the post. Edward Brown filed false police reports against his own family. He's mentally unstable from grief and trying to steal our children's security. Please pray for our family during this difficult time. Sarah had crafted her narrative carefully. I was the unstable aggressor. She and Tyler were victims of a grieving man's delusions. The post included a photo of Tyler's children, my grandchildren, looking sad. The caption read, "These innocent babies are suffering because their grandfather chose revenge over family love." 23 people liked the post within an hour. Mutual acquaintances who didn't know the full story saw a grandmother's plea for prayer and responded with sympathy. But Sarah had made a crucial mistake. Our town was small. People who'd known Margaret and me for decades saw right through the manipulation. Mrs. Peterson was the first to respond. I witnessed the phone call where Tyler called his father names on the night of Margaret's funeral. This post is shameful. Reverend Williams from our church added his comment. Edward Brown cared for Margaret with devotion for 8 months. I've never seen such dedication. Perhaps the family should examine their own behavior. Then something beautiful happened. Margaret's cancer support group found the post. Linda Martinez, who'd undergone chemo with Margaret, wrote, Margaret talked about Edward constantly during treatment. He never missed an appointment, never complained, never showed anything but love. This post dishonors her memory. Carol Stevens, another cancer survivor, shared the original post with her own comment. This man drove his wife to every chemo session for 8 months. He learned to cook soft foods when she couldn't swallow. He slept in hospital chairs. If you're attacking Edward Brown, you're on the wrong side. The narrative was shifting. Sarah tried to double down with another post. People don't understand how grief can change someone. Edward is not the man he used to be. We're just trying to protect ourselves and our children. But by then, Mrs. Carson from the grocery store had shared her encounter. I witnessed Tyler Brown screaming at his father in Morrison's today. The whole store heard him. This young man has no respect for the father who raised him. Tyler tried to control the damage with his own post. Family conflicts should be private. My father is struggling with Mom's death and making decisions that hurt everyone. We're trying to help him through this difficult time. But the comments section became an avalanche of community support for me. Edward Brown is a good man. I've known him for 20 years. Janet Miller. Margaret was lucky to have such a devoted husband. Tyler should be ashamed. Robert Wilson. This is what happens when children take their parents for granted. Susan Taylor. Tommy Rodriguez from the grocery store posted, I watched Tyler Brown disrespect his father in my store. The man just buried his wife and his son was yelling at him. Disgusting behavior. The real damage came when someone shared Margaret's obituary, which I'd written with love and detail. It mentioned her 8-month battle, my constant care, and the kitchen equipment that had helped maintain her dignity during illness. Sarah's theft narrative collapsed when people realized Tyler had stolen medical equipment from a man who just lost his wife to cancer. Dr. Patricia Williams, Margaret's oncologist, commented, Edward Brown was the most dedicated caregiver I've ever encountered. He learned medical procedures to help Margaret at home. Attacking this man is unconscionable. By midnight, Sarah's original post had been shared 47 times, mostly with critical commentary about Tyler's behavior. Her attempt to portray me as unstable had backfired completely. The next morning brought the cruelest blow. Someone had recorded Tyler's outburst at the grocery store on their phone. The video went viral in our small community Facebook groups. You could hear Tyler clearly, You're making us look like criminals over kitchen stuff. And my calm response, I'm simply documenting what happened. The video showed Tyler red-faced and aggressive while I remained composed and dignified. Sarah could be heard calling me a bitter old man. Mrs. Carson's voice was clear on the recording. You took your father's belongings while he was burying your mother? Tyler's stumbling, incoherent response revealed everything. The comment sections filled with outrage. People who'd known Margaret personally shared stories of her kindness. Church members described my devotion during her illness. Neighbors recalled seeing Tyler's truck at my house during the funeral. Sarah deleted her original post by noon, but screenshots had been saved and shared. The internet never forgets, especially in small towns where everyone knows everyone. Tyler's reputation was destroyed in less than 24 hours. But they had no idea this was just the beginning. The real reckoning was still to come. Jim Henderson called me on October 1st with a legal update and a warning. Edward, the theft case is solid, but we need to prepare for Tyler's inevitable challenge to your will. He's going to claim undue influence, mental incapacity, anything to overturn your decision. What do we need? Documentation, evidence, a complete record showing your mental clarity and Tyler's character failures. Jim had been building our case methodically. He'd collected the security camera footage showing Tyler's truck at my house during Margaret's funeral service. Timestamp, 2:47 p.m., exactly when the church program showed I was receiving condolences. He'd documented Tyler's phone call with a sworn affidavit from Mrs. Peterson, who'd witnessed Tyler's disrespectful language on the night of Margaret's funeral. Her statement quoted Tyler directly. "You're too old to use these anyway, and don't get all dramatic, Dad." The police report provided official documentation of the theft. Detective Davis had confirmed the serial numbers, estimated values, and Tyler's attempted justifications. Every appliance was photographed and cataloged as evidence. Medical records from Margaret's cancer treatment showed the necessity for specialized equipment. Dr. Williams had provided a detailed explanation of why each appliance was medically required: temperature-controlled refrigeration for medications, soft food processing for swallowing difficulties, precise heating for liquid nutrition. The most powerful evidence is the financial timeline, Jim explained. Margaret's life insurance was delivered September 10th. She died September 11th. Tyler stole the appliances September 12th. The sequence proves he acted on greed, not grief. Jim had also documented Tyler's financial desperation. Credit reports showing $68,000 in debt, second mortgage documents, bank statements revealing overdraft fees and missed payments. Tyler wasn't just stealing appliances, Jim noted. He was stealing from what he assumed was a broke old man to solve his own financial problems. The social media evidence was particularly damning. Jim had screenshots of Sarah's posts attempting to portray me as mentally unstable. He'd captured the community's overwhelming support for my character and their condemnation of Tyler's behavior. The grocery store incident sealed it, Jim said. Tommy Rodriguez provided security footage of Tyler's public outburst. Mrs. Carson gave a detailed witness statement. Tyler destroyed his own credibility in front of the entire community. But Jim's most devastating evidence was Tyler's own words. He'd recorded our phone conversations, legal in our state with single-party consent. Tyler's voice clearly demanding I sell my house, move to senior housing, and surrender my autonomy. "Listen to this," Jim played Tyler's recorded voice. "We're thinking you should sell the house, too. Move into one of those senior communities. You'd probably be happier around people your own age." Then Sarah's voice. "Tell him if he reports anything stolen, we'll contest Mom's will. We'll claim elder abuse." "They threatened you with false elder abuse claims while simultaneously committing actual elder abuse through theft and coercion," Jim observed. The irony is legally significant. Jim had calculated the precise mathematics of Tyler's character failure. Tyler stole $15,000 in appliances, assuming his father was destitute. He lost a $2,800,000 inheritance. That's a cost ratio of 187 to 1 for his greed. The will revision was documented with multiple witnesses and comprehensive psychological evaluation. Dr. Patricia Martinez had examined me at Jim's request, confirming my mental competency and emotional stability. "Edward demonstrates clear thinking, appropriate grief responses, and sound judgment," Dr. Martinez had written. "His decision to redirect inheritance based on documented character failures shows wisdom, not instability." Margaret's original wishes provided the strongest moral foundation. Jim had Margaret's recorded statement from her hospital bed. "Test Tyler's character before trusting him with our life's work. Make sure he's earned what we'd give him." "Your wife essentially predicted this scenario," Jim told me. "She knew Tyler's weaknesses and wanted safeguards in place. The charity designation strengthened our legal position. The Pancreatic Cancer Research Foundation was a legitimate 501(c)(3) organization. My donation would fund research to cure the disease that killed Margaret. Tyler can't argue against cancer research without looking even worse," Jim noted. "You're not being vindictive. You're honoring Margaret's memory by fighting her killer." Jim had also prepared for Tyler's likely defenses. If Tyler claimed temporary insanity from grief, the premeditated timing contradicted that excuse. If he claimed financial desperation, that proved motive for theft rather than justification. The evidence tells a clear story, Jim summarized. A devoted husband cared for his dying wife using specialized equipment. Their son stole that equipment during the funeral, assuming his father was helpless. The father then redirected the inheritance to honor his wife's memory and punish the character failure. When do we present this to Tyler? October 15th. The will reading, with Margaret's entire family present as witnesses. Jim smiled grimly. Tyler wanted a public confrontation at the grocery store. Now he'll get a public reckoning at the law office. Is he ready for what's coming? No one's ever ready to lose $2.8 million, Edward, especially for stealing $15,000. The mathematics of Tyler's greed were about to become unavoidably clear. October 15th arrived gray and cold. Jim Henderson had scheduled the will reading for 2 p.m. at his law office on Main Street. The entire family would be present. Tyler, Sarah, Margaret's 2 sisters, her brother, and 3 cousins who'd been close to Margaret during her illness. Tyler arrived in his BMW, confident and composed. He'd clearly prepared for this moment, expecting to inherit Margaret's modest estate and my small savings. Sarah wore her best dress, the one she'd worn to Margaret's funeral. "Hello, Dad," Tyler said as he entered the conference room. "I'm glad we're finally handling Mom's affairs properly." Margaret's sister Linda embraced me warmly. "Edward, how are you holding up?" "I'm well, Linda. Margaret would be happy to see everyone together." Jim Henderson arranged the seating carefully, Tyler and Sarah at one end of the long table, Margaret's family members along the sides, me at the head, with Jim beside me holding a thick folder of documents. "Thank you all for coming," Jim began. "We're here to read the will of Margaret Brown as well as discuss Edward's estate planning decisions." Tyler nodded expectantly. In his mind, this was just a formality before inheriting whatever modest savings his parents had accumulated. "Before we begin," Jim continued, "I need to present some relevant documentation that affects these proceedings." Jim activated the conference room's projection screen. The first image showed Northwestern Mutual letterhead. "This is Margaret Brown's life insurance policy. The death benefit was $2,800,000. The room went silent. Tyler's face registered shock, then calculation, then barely contained excitement. Sarah whispered, "$2.8 million?" Margaret's sister Carol gasped. "Margaret never mentioned." "Margaret preferred privacy about financial matters," I explained. "She wanted security without ostentation." Tyler was visibly restraining himself from smiling. $2.8 million was far more than he'd imagined. His financial problems would disappear overnight. Jim displayed the next document. "This is Edward's original will, drafted in 2019. Tyler Brown is designated as sole beneficiary of the entire estate." Tyler relaxed into his chair. Everything was proceeding as expected. "However," Jim continued, "this will was revised on September 15th, 2024. Let me explain the circumstances that led to that decision." The projection screen showed security camera footage. Date stamp, September 12th, 2024, 2:47 p.m. Tyler's truck backing up to my house. This footage was recorded during Margaret's funeral service. The room watched in stunned silence as the video showed Tyler and Sarah loading appliances into their truck. KitchenAid mixer, Samsung refrigerator, Bosch dishwasher, a systematic stripping of the kitchen while mourners gathered at the church. Margaret's brother David spoke first. "They were stealing during the funeral?" Tyler jumped up from his chair. "Dad, you can't seriously be showing this to everyone. It was a misunderstanding." "Please sit down, Tyler," Jim said calmly. "There's more documentation to review." The next exhibit was Tyler's handwritten note, found on my kitchen counter. "Dad, you're too old to use these anyway. We need them more. Don't be dramatic about it." Margaret's cousin Susan read the note aloud, her voice filled with disgust. "Written on Margaret's funeral program?" Sarah tried to interrupt. "You don't understand the context." "The context," Jim interrupted, "is documented in these phone recordings." Tyler's voice filled the conference room, recorded from our conversation on September 12th. "You're living like a hermit anyway. Margaret's gone. It's time to start downsizing." Then Sarah's voice. "Tell him we're doing him a favor." Tyler's recorded words continued. "We've got 2 kids and a mortgage. You just heat up TV dinners now." Margaret's family members exchanged horrified glances. They were hearing Tyler dismiss his father's grief and his mother's memory with casual cruelty. The recording played Tyler's most damaging statement. You've never been good with money anyway. At least this way, the appliances go to someone who can make proper use of them." Linda Brown, Margaret's sister, stood up abruptly. "Stop! I can't listen to any more." But Jim continued the audio. Sarah's voice threatening elder abuse claims. Tyler calculating that I should live on $30,000 a year. His statement about accelerating the process of inheritance. When the recordings ended, the silence was deafening. Tyler was sweating now, realizing the extent of the evidence against him. "Dad, those conversations were private. You can't use—" "They're perfectly legal recordings," Jim interrupted. "Single-party consent laws apply." Margaret's brother David looked directly at Tyler. "You stole medical equipment from your dying mother?" "It wasn't medical equipment," Tyler protested. "It was kitchen appliances." Jim displayed the purchase receipts. Samsung refrigerator with medical-grade temperature controls for medication storage, $2,400. Cuisinart food processor for soft food preparation during swallowing difficulties, $150. Each appliance was specifically chosen to help Margaret maintain dignity during her final months. Dr. Patricia Williams had provided a written statement, which Jim read aloud. Edward Brown learned to operate specialized equipment to care for Margaret at home. His dedication extended her life and improved her comfort significantly. The appliances in question were essential medical tools. Tyler's composure finally cracked. "This is insane. You're all acting like I'm some kind of criminal." "The police disagree," Jim said quietly. "Here's the official theft report. Document VA 2024-091315 appeared on screen. Felony theft. $15,000 in stolen property. Premeditated timing during victim's emotional vulnerability." Sarah was crying now. "We were trying to help. Edward needed to downsize after Margaret died." "By stealing?" Margaret's cousin Susan asked, "while he was burying his wife?" Jim moved to the final presentation. Based on this documented pattern of disrespect, financial exploitation, and character failure, Edward revised his will. The new will appeared on screen. Tyler's inheritance, $50,000, in recognition of his expressed need for household appliances. Tyler read the number and laughed nervously. $50,000? Dad, what about the rest? The remaining $2,750,000, Jim continued, will establish the Margaret Brown Memorial Fund for pancreatic cancer research. The number hit Tyler like a physical blow. He'd lost over $2.7 million. "No," Tyler whispered. No, Dad, you can't do this." Sarah was hyperventilating. $2.7 million to charity? Tyler stood up, desperate. "Dad, I made a mistake. We all make mistakes. You can't destroy my family over one mistake." I looked at my son calmly. "Tyler, you didn't make a mistake. You made a choice. You showed me exactly who you are when you thought I had nothing." "I'll contest this," Tyler shouted. "Undue influence, mental incompetency. I'll fight this in court." Jim smiled. "With what money, Tyler? Legal challenges cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. You just inherited $50,000. Margaret's sister Linda spoke for the family. "Edward, we support your decision completely. Margaret would be proud that her life insurance is fighting the disease that killed her." Tyler looked around the room desperately. His extended family was nodding in agreement. No one supported his position. "This isn't over," Tyler said, grabbing Sarah's hand. "We'll find a way to overturn this." "Actually," Jim said, "it is over. The charity has already been notified. The money transfers tomorrow." Tyler and Sarah left without another word, their BMW speeding away from the law office. Margaret's family stayed for another hour, discussing the Cancer Research Fund and sharing memories of Margaret's final months. They praised my decision and promised to help publicize the charity in Margaret's honor. As everyone prepared to leave, Linda hugged me tightly. "Edward, Margaret always worried about Tyler's character. She'd be relieved to know her money is going to help other families, instead of enabling his selfishness." I looked out the window at the street where Tyler's BMW had disappeared. "Character tests reveal everything, Linda. Tyler showed me exactly what family means to him, and now he knows exactly what it means to you. The Margaret Brown Memorial Fund would save lives that pancreatic cancer might otherwise claim. Tyler's greed had inadvertently funded hope for thousands of families facing the disease that destroyed ours. Sometimes justice and healing arrive together, wrapped in the consequences of someone else's choices. 6 months later, the Margaret Brown Memorial Fund had raised an additional $800,000 from community donations inspired by our story. Pancreatic cancer research was moving forward with renewed funding and hope. Tyler and Sarah lost their house in February. The second mortgage, credit card debt, and legal fees from their failed will challenge consumed their resources. They moved into a rental apartment across town, their BMW replaced by a used Honda. Tyler called me once more in March, his voice hollow with defeat. "Dad, Sarah's pregnant. We're going to lose the apartment. The kids are asking why Grandpa won't help." "I'm helping, Tyler. $50,000, remember? You said you needed it more." "That's gone. Legal fees, moving costs, it's gone." "Then you should have managed it better. You told me I was bad with money." Silence. "Dad, please. I know I screwed up, but we're family." "Yes, we are. And you showed me exactly what that means to you." I hung up and looked at the letter from the Pancreatic Cancer Research Foundation. Margaret's donation had funded a breakthrough in early detection protocols. Her life insurance was saving lives she'd never meet. The local newspaper ran a feature story about the memorial fund. My photo appeared alongside Margaret's, with the headline, "Love's Final Victory Over Cancer." The article mentioned Tyler only as estranged family members who challenged the donation unsuccessfully. Mrs. Peterson stopped by with the newspaper clipping. "Edward, Margaret would be so proud. You turned Tyler's cruelty into something beautiful." Margaret always said character reveals itself under pressure. Tyler chose greed when he thought I was helpless. I chose honor when I had the power to choose otherwise. The community center dedicated a memorial garden to Margaret, funded by additional donations to her research fund. Her name was engraved on a granite bench where cancer survivors gather for support meetings. Tyler drives past that memorial garden every day on his way to his new job at the hardware store. His children play in the park nearby, asking questions about their grandmother's name on the memorial bench. I hope someday Tyler understands that stealing $15,000 in medical equipment cost him a $2.8 million inheritance. But more importantly, I hope he learns that character isn't tested when life is easy. It's tested when you think no one is watching, when you believe there are no consequences, when you assume the people who love you are too weak to defend themselves. Margaret's legacy lives on in cancer research and community healing. Tyler's legacy is the lesson that greed destroys what patience would have provided. Sometimes the greatest gift you can give someone is letting them face the full consequences of their choices.